What's going on, guys? It's Fight System MMA, and today I want to go in and recap UFC 309. Jon Jones' dominant victory over Stipe Miocic, something that we didn't see coming in this fight now. I think everyone knew that Jon Jones was going to be able to go in there and kind of dismantle Stipe Miocic pretty quickly. Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, easily fight of the night. Great co-main event. That fifth round was one of the best fifth rounds I have ever seen in the UFC. Also, Bo Nickal not gets fraud checks, but definitely has a little bit to talk about considering that unanimous decision against Paul Craig, but he didn't look that dominant out there. Mauricio Ruffy looked incredible in that fight with Jon Jones, and he was landing some absolutely nasty combos. And lastly, Martinez McGhee got the unanimous decision victory over Jonathan Martinez. And we'll kind of talk about all these fights that I've mentioned real quick. But if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always and furtherly notified when UFC content releases. But without further ado, let's jump into this card, talk about all these fights, and just kind of wrap up UFC 309 as a whole. Okay, so we are going to start with the main event, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, and Jon Jones looked like he was in autopilot in this fight. Jon Jones, 104 total strikes landed, Stipe Miocic, 42. Now, Jon Jones was incredibly efficient with these strikes as well, 104 out of 128, 81% landed, as well as Jon Jones having that one takedown in the first round where he kind of tabletopped him and ultimately led into incredible ground and pound. Now, out of Jon Jones's strikes, 96 of the 104 were significant, and Stipe Miocic, on the other hand, only 37 out of the 42 were significant. Now, the knockdown came in the third round, where Jon Jones hit Stipe Miocic with a spinning back kick right to the ribs. It was kind of misconcepted that it was to the liver's on the other side. It was just to the rib. It could have been a kidney, could have been something like that that really hurt Stipe, or he could have broke a rib, something like that. But Stipe went down immediately. Jon Jones led up with ground and pound, ultimately getting him the win. Now, Jon Jones looked really good in this fight. He looked really good, and I'm so happy that he did not put the gloves down because I think he's got 1, 2, or 3 more fights left in him, especially at heavyweight where he's not cutting any weight. He did look really good in this fight considering that he is a little bit smaller to where he has that speed. I think it really helps him in these fights, but, you know, Jon Jones looked really good. I don't know if that's a testament to Jon Jones being the GOAT or Stipe Miocic looking like he was genuinely over the hill. Stipe looked slow. He didn't know what he looked like he wanted to do. And Stipe Miocic officially hung up the gloves last night. One of the best heavyweight careers of all time. I still think he's the current heavyweight GOAT. But, you know, Stipe Miocic had a great career. I think he's just a little bit over the hill. But Jon Jones, like I said, great win. Even though it was over an older Stipe Miocic, doing it in that fashion, I still think is a great win. And this sets up hopefully a fight with Tom Aspinall very soon. But like I said, Jon Jones, you can't take anything away from him. Being able to go in there and TKO Miocic, kind of looking dominant throughout the entire fight. In the first fight with the ground and pound. Second fight on the feet, he looked just faster. He was switching it up very well. And Stipe didn't know what he wanted to do. But like I said, Jones gets the win, ultimately in a great main event. Now, the co-main event was a very fun fight, to say the least. Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira was just absolutely on point tonight. He was landing all the strikes that he wanted. He was getting all the control time that he wanted. And genuinely, Charles Oliveira was doing everything that he wanted in this fight. And I'm actually so surprised looking at the stats now that Michael Chandler outlanded Charles Oliveira 115 to 117. But I also think that the big difference between these fights is that Charles Oliveira had 5 takedowns compared to Michael Chandler 0, and Charles Oliveira was able to hold the fight down on the ground. Now, I guess the big thing that really shows here is Charles Oliveira actually outlanded Michael Chandler in the significant strikes category, 88 to 1 or to 84, outlanding him by 4. But Charles Oliveira looked incredibly technical. You know, that first fight, I was kind of talking to a friend, and I was like, you know what, that was the most low IQ 2 fighters that you could put in the octagon with one another at UFC 262. They just went in there and brawled, but this fight showed the evolution of both of these guys. Charles Oliveira looked so technical. Like I said, he was, you know, hitting from range, throwing in knees, doing all these different type of things, and genuinely, Charles Oliveira knew what he needed to do, especially in that 5th round where he got absolutely rocked. I thought the fight was over. Charles was able to survive, get back up on the feet, and ultimately go and take the back to ride out the round. Charles knew that he had 4 in the bag and that he just needed to survive the round. And Michael Chandler at the end of that fight, squatting Charles Oliveira and throwing him on his back twice is an incredible thing to see. Now, Charles, I do think is next for the belt. Besides that, the fight is going to go down Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan in January in Los Angeles, California. I am 99% sure. And then after that, hopefully we get to see Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, possibly at International Fight Week in 2025. Now, Michael Chandler, on the other hand, looked great in this fight. I still think that Conor McGregor fight should be next. He did look very good. Now, I think the kind of good thing about Michael Chandler is he was really composed tonight. And I think that, Chandler being composed almost takes away some of his incredible ability, because in those Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje fights, he was winning some of those rounds because he was just so chaotic in there. And not to say that he should go back to that style 100%, because I also think that that's the reason he lost some of these fights, especially against Oliveira. Being that chaotic just led to him, getting absolutely finished. But Michael Chandler is a great fighter. This was an amazing fight. This is one of my favorite fights of the year. I love always watching Charles do Bronx Oliveira and Michael Chandler go at it, considering that Oliveira is one of the UFC's biggest stars. Michael Chandler is an honorable guy. Everyone loves him inside the organization. And when these two fighters step in, this is probably going to be the last time they fight. It's just going to be an incredible thing to see. Now, to the featured bout of the night, Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. This was a very underwhelming fight, especially an underwhelming performance by Bo Nickal. You kind of know what Paul Craig is. He's a guy who doesn't throw a lot of strikes. He throws a lot of body kicks, and that's what he was doing last night, and it was really kind of limiting Bo Nickal and what he could do. The commentators kind of explained it. If you throw body kicks, you can't counter, and that's genuinely what was happening. So I look at these splits through the rounds. Bo Nickal outlanded Paul Craig in the first round 16-14, second round 22-21, and third round 16-13. I had it 29-28. Bo Nickal gave the first round to Paul Craig, but obviously I think Bo Nickal won the fight, either 30-27 or 29-28. These rounds were so close to judge, and I just don't know if there was a clear-cut way to score this fight. I look at the total strikes, 54-48. Significant was 54-47. Bo Nickal's striking style, you can tell, has so many holes in it. The commentators were talking about if you threw Bo Nickal in there with Khamzat Chimaev, Khamzat's striking game is a lot, leagues more refined than Bo Nickal's. Yeah, they might be the same level, quote-unquote, grappler, but, Khamzat would go in there and absolutely run through Bo because of that striking prowess. But, I also think that Bo Nickal was so scared to go into Paul Craig's guard, and I understand you got to give Paul Craig that respect, but, Bo Nickal is a collegiate champion wrestler, a national champion wrestler, and he wasn't willing to go in there with Paul Craig in his guard. And I understand Paul Craig has submitted Magomed Ankalaev, Jamal Hill, but it's one of those things that I wish Bo Nickal kind of put his wrestling on a little bit more. And considering that Bo Nickal was a minus 1,100 favorite, this was such an underwhelming performance. He did look good. He did get the win. Paul Craig is a great fighter. He's really underrated, as much as, he might not have the most complete game, but he is a submission specialist. And yes, I understand that Bo Nickal didn't want to take it there, but I think you got to kind of roll with the punches as they come, and Bo Nickal got the win, and I think you kind of move on to the next one. I don't think you give him a step up too much in competition. Probably one more unranked guy to see if he can kind of go out there and refine his striking a little bit more, because if he fought a ranked opponent at middleweight, I think he would get pieced apart. Okay, on to the opening fight of the night. Mauricio Ruffy, 3-round decision win over Jan Llontop. And Mauricio Ruffy looked amazing. Now, Llontop outstruck Ruffy 112-74, and a lot of that just came in the final round. But Ruffy was landing the craziest shots in this fight. The first round, he hit him with a right down the pipe, and then followed it up with a tornado kick, something that I went crazy for because Ruffy is such a fun striker. In the second round, I was actually on my phone for 1 second, and he hit that look away, little shovel left hook that knocked Llontop down. That was an incredible little hook. Ruffy really reminds me of young Conor McGregor. I know that we're talking about that on the broadcast, but Ruffy is so good. He's kind of got that awkward style. Now, they were also talking about how this cannot translate to going long time, and as you saw, Ruffy in that third round really got withered out because he throws everything into his shots. And that was the biggest thing with Conor McGregor, is he does not have an economically efficient style, as well as Ruffy as well. And I think that this is a great win for Ruffy. He called out Benoit Saint Denis, which is a great call out. And I don't know if he's going to end up taking that fight, because Ruffy versus Benoit would be an absolute barn burner, possibly a main event somewhere. But genuinely, I know that Ruffy is one of the best upcoming lightweights right now. He has that kind of crazy striking style, and he's got so much power, but genuinely no one wants to fight him, and I completely understand why. And the featured prelim of the night, Marcus McGhee went in there and beat Jonathan Martinez. I think Marcus McGhee is one of the best bantamweights currently in the division, but I just saw a lot of holes in his game as well. He's got a great striking game. He's got a great ground game as well. But those leg kicks, now, I understand Jonathan Martinez is one of the best leg kickers inside the organization because genuinely, in this fight, Jonathan Martinez landed 21 shots to the legs, which was pretty much half of his strikes thrown in this fight. And he hit Marcus McGhee with an incredible, powerful leg kick at the end of the round. And, I think that Marcus McGhee's got to go and learn how to check the kicks a little bit more prior to going in and fighting some of these dudes. I think that this is going to be the most dangerous leg kicker he fights inside the bantamweight division, but genuinely, there's some killers up there in the bantamweight division. But Marcus McGhee looked great. He was dodging off on different angles, getting different strikes. He showed that he is one of the most technical bantamweights currently in the organization. I don't think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to fight Marcus McGhee. I do think that you give him a fight probably in the top 10 next, or give him another fight that the guy is number 13, 12, 11, something like that. But Marcus McGhee, great win at UFC 309. This guy should be fighting only on big pay-per-view cards. He is so exciting to watch. And genuinely, Jonathan Martinez looked lost out there again, just like he did against Jose Aldo. And I think Marcus McGhee, his career is going out there and moving strong. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think below about this UFC 309 card in total. What did you think about Jon Jones' TKO over Stipe Miocic, Charles Oliveira's win over Michael Chandler, Bo Nickal's performance, which I thought was underwhelming, Mauricio Ruffy blossoming into one of the UFC's best prospects, and Marcus McGhee ultimately getting the decision victory over Jonathan Martinez. I think UFC 309 in total was a better card than I thought it was going to be, but genuinely, I knew Stipe Miocic was going to kind of get, bodied a little bit by Jones. He's just too old in that camp. He looked old. He looked like he'd been through a bunch of wars. Charles do Bronx Oliveira, one of the UFC's most beloved fighters in the organization, and genuinely an incredible, incredible fighter that needs to be next for the belt. And ultimately, I think that UFC 309 is a fight card that will always be remembered in history. Obviously, getting Jon Jones in that main event, Charles Oliveira in that co-main event is something that is always fun to see. But if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always and furtherly notified about UFC content releasing every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.